All right, I clicked go live. If you can hear me, say the secret code word. It's time for another news show. Krista is homesick. She's not going to infect us. And we're actually 3 minutes early because I set the stream start time to 3:33, not 3:30.
I think we tweeted 3:30.
Do I need a drink for this show? Yes. We're not drinking, but you can drink.
You should just be drinking in general. Have you observed the world lately?
Good Lord, everything is just completely on fire. All right, so they say secret code word, so they heard me. We can get started. There's a link to the Level 1 forums that has all of the stories on it for the entire show. We're going to go through the entire week's news, so pace yourself. You know, if you normally get this across the whole week, that would be good.
Did you prep the forum post already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, there was time this time. There wasn't time last time. So we're doing this live because last week was a holiday week and we didn't shoot the news last week. And also, everybody dumps their news late on Friday anyway. And then, like, they put out a press release or they announce something and then the news outlets don't even cover it. So,
news outlets covering less and less these days.
Yeah. Oh, and we're going to do Devember this year. That's going to be posted on the forum later. But so if you want to participate in Devember, we've usually got some really amazing prizes. You can do the game side or the programming side. Be on the lookout for that announcement. I guess we're ready for the news.
Except it's not news. Just some hot links that we want to share with our friends. And first, we'll be sharing some government links. I didn't even do 2 sections this time because I was scrambling toward the end. But let's start out with some Chinese news. This is not anything all that surprising, but this does maybe show that the various government agencies are getting a little more serious about showing their teeth.
U.S. bans Huawei ZTE equipment sales amid Chinese spying fears. Yeah, we do that so the audio levels won't change when we switch scenes, because apparently it does that when it's live, but not when it's recording. This is not really anything new. Although, now if you do business with the government also, they're supposed to make you sign Form 889, which says that you are also not using this equipment.
They did add some names. Hikvision and Hytera are now joining the club.
Along with ZTE, Dahua, and Huawei. Huawei or the highway.
And it turns out that those drones may not be a hollow threat, because we've discovered that there are plenty of them flying around. Now, there's certain places these drones are designed, they are programmed. Their robotic rules prevent them from going to those places, but it turns out that's pretty easy to bypass.
This article from Politico is senators are alarmed over potential Chinese drone spy threat. This is a great article to read if you're a technical person, to understand how non-technical people get this completely wrong. Like, Politico is spinning this politically to use as like a fear-mongering, oh my gosh, we need more control of drones or whatever. DJI is correct that it's really trivial to modify any drone, not just theirs, to bypass airspace restrictions. And what the government seems to be asking for here is a more foolproof and, user can't modify it way of doing this. But what the article completely misses is that DJI sends a lot of your data back to China from your flight path and everything else. So, like, if you hack it, it's still getting the correct GPS coordinates in some scenarios. And China will still get that. Their cloud service and the hosting and that sort of thing. Not really any different than Facebook getting all of your data, or Meta, or Google, or anything else.
But I think between the lines, what they're saying is China's the one doing it in the first place. So they're well aware that they're sending it back. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
And that's Washington, D.C.'s no-fly zone. So that's where it's happening. You can fly your drone in a lot of places. Some places you can't, but D.C., the whole area is no-fly because the worst of us live there.
You're also not allowed to have your own cell tower that you use to gather data, and yet a lot of the embassies have their own local cell tower that happens to also pick up everybody around them. It's not a lot different.
Totally different. And the authorities have been kind of on a tear, seizing websites and streaming services and stuff like that. They love to take them down, and now they got one more to notch on their belt.
U.S. authorities seize iSpoof, a call spoofing site that stole millions. So you could, spoof your caller ID Turns out that's really easy to do. And this was a website that made their business model, hey, we can do that really easily. So that's not okay.
Something tells me it won't stop. I think someone will pick up that fallen banner pretty quickly. And bad news for basically any giant tech company trying to merge in the near future, because every government in the world has now decided that they're against this.
Fed's likely to challenge Microsoft's $69 billion Activision takeover. They're asking a lot of the same questions that Euros have already asked. Except without the PlayStation questions. There was a distinct lack of PlayStation-related questions.
Microsoft was like, we promised you could have Call of Duty. What more do you want?
My favorite thing about this was saying that Nintendo had more adult content than Microsoft does, which is kind of funny.
It's a different story.
It's related, damn it.
And the U.S. Navy, they are big buyers of software, because if the U.S. Navy buys your software, you're going to sell a lot of licenses because they need a lot of seats for that thing. Unless, perhaps they buy 1 or 2 licenses, just reuse it constantly.
The U.S. Navy forced to pay a software company for piracy. This is really interesting. I think this was done innocently, but at the same time, it's like, they bought, it was a couple of hundred licenses for this software that can view a certain file type. And they deployed it across their entire fleet of machines. Now, probably not a lot of people used it, but because it was there and available to be used, and they undid it like a month or 2 later, they still had to pay a couple of $100,000 in fees.
But that was mediated. I guess because you're the military, you get to automatically go to mediation. The company wanted $1,000 per license. The mediator settled on $200 per license. So they still kind of got screwed a little bit there. It was some kind of 3D imaging software to map the Earth so that you can bomb it. And New York is, it's an interesting history for this, because Kathy Hochul has been sitting on this for a long time. And everybody's like, hey, Kathy, what you going to do about the crypto? You got to make a decision on that crypto. And she's like, I'm undecided. Meanwhile, Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried was pouring money into the coffers of her running mate's election campaign, who was up for re-election. So suddenly, that's removed from the equation, and wouldn't you know...
New York enacts a 2-year ban on some crypto mining operations. This has to do with the physical presence of crypto mining operations and subsidies and keeping the power plants running. This one also had the condition about, like, if you've got a power plant that's under capacity, you can't buy the leftovers or something. I thought that was the more interesting clause that was there.
Just throw that away. We can't use it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Crypto mining is sort of a terrible thing, so...
No new facilities. Existing facilities will be continue to allow to be operate. Or will continue to be allowed to operate.
But is it profitable at this point?
I don't think so.
It's an easy time to make that decision. And the UK taking a similar page from our book and going after the same cameras.
UK bans Chinese surveillance cameras from quote-unquote sensitive sites. Rather than an outright ban. Why? Why would you just ban it everywhere? Come on.
You plebs can be spied on, but not us. We're important.
It turns out that there's a full Linux stack in the cameras. So it turns out that that's a great springboard for you to be able to, do whatever you want.
And they never get updated, and they stay up for years and years and years. Terrible situation. UK is also making some interesting decisions about AI-generated content, but a very specific kind of AI-generated content.
The UK is going to criminalize deepfake porn sharing without consent.
But
why would anybody ever give consent?
But if it's not really you, how does the imaginary deepfake creation give consent?
What if you have a deepfake that looks similar to somebody that exists but isn't real?
Well, that's all of them. Wait, are you thinking that would be real person with a deepfake, like they have to give permission? Or does the celebrity being deepfaked onto have to give permission?
I was thinking that this has to do with revenge porn, but I was thinking that somebody would use an AI generated face that happens to look like somebody else, and then it's like, oh my gosh, that person looks like me, and then I didn't give permission.
I think probably in reality, it's always going to fall on like you're guilty.
Yeah.
And maybe it should, because that's a hell of a hair to split, right?
Yeah.
How about just don't share the porn with everybody else, right? You can't sell it. Do you really desperately need to share it that much? Is it really that hot? I don't know. It's a weird situation that we're living in. It's hard to make rules about it.
It is very weird.
And like I said before, if you want to be a big tech company right now, you're going to take a beating from every government. They're tired of your crap.
UK confirms the antitrust probe of Android iOS mobile duopoly, focusing on browsers and cloud gaming. So based on this, the UK is about 3 years behind the EU. 2.5 years?
Seems about right. It's the same old argument. And a lot of it rings true.
It really does.
And Broadcom was it Qualcomm trying to bribe Broadcom, or Broadcom was trying to bribe Qualcomm, right? Yeah. And they smacked that down. And Broadcom was like, okay, I guess we'll try again. Guess what happened?
Broadcom's proposed $61 billion VMware acquisition is scrutinized by UK regulators. I have a feeling this one will go through, though, because Broadcom and VMware are different verticals for the most part. Although Broadcom, the whole reason for the VMware Broadcom acquisition is because of technologies like SRIOV, where the software really dictates a lot of how the network and the silicon will perform, and Broadcom didn't have enough tentacles in that stack. So to remain competitive, they have to have something. Gotta have the two things work together.
I don't know. I think it's bad PR to approve anything at this point. I think the people are tired of it.
Yeah.
They've turned on tech.
Yeah.
We might just have to live with what you got. Oh no, you're gonna have to license somebody else's stuff and pay for it. Of course, they'll pass it on to us.
Got a lot of new UK news this time.
Well, they're doing some crazy stuff. And this one, you might, especially if this has touched your life, I'm sure you have strong feelings about it. But this is one of those free speech hurdles where it's difficult to get over it, but you have to.
Yeah.
Because the only way is free speech.
Trolls who encourage self-harm online face criminal prosecution, says minister. This is in the UK, so this is another one of those. We're amending a bill to criminalize trollish behavior.
And it's that online safety bill,
yeah,
which is a terrible, terrible thing.
I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about some of the horror stories that have come out of like 4chan and Kiwi farms and that sort of thing. But at the same time, this doesn't feel like the solution.
No, certainly not. But it's going to happen. So don't use social media. And the EU has decided to finally accept the reality of modern technology and give us back our one little freedom.
Bye-bye airplane mode. The EU allows smartphones during flights. Because it's a 5G micro tower. Actually, with the flying that I was doing lately, the Wi-Fi worked all the way from takeoff, like before the doors were closed, to landing, which is unusual. Usually they don't turn it on until you're 10,000 feet in the air and slow and crappy. I think it was Starlink. So it actually worked shockingly well.
That makes sense. Starlink for the backbone, and then 5G to spread it around the cabin. Although all that hysteria about 5G taking down planes, now we're putting it on the planes.
Well, remember 5G is 3 frequencies, so presumably one of those is bad for the airplane instrumentation.
Do you think that equipment is incapable of the one that's bad?
Probably, yeah.
Could it be misconfigured?
It could be misconfigured, I'd say.
And the EU countries are now doing what basically every developed country is doing, and that is taking a look at their own ability to create chips and panicking.
The EU countries back €1 billion chip plan ahead of talks with lawmakers. Yes. The European Union needs the ability to make power transistors and stuff like that. It's like, if we really had to, we could go back to the 6502. I could get behind this movement. This makes sense.
It's paywalled, but their plan is to be like a player in this game by like 2030, I think.
Yeah.
They really want to. They don't want to just subsistence levels. They want to be up there fighting.
There's that guy that's doing silicon fabrication in his garage as well. There's a lot of learning from that, which is good.
They might be able to get that number 2 spot, but I think it would require a Chinese revolution.
Be careful what you wish for.
I don't know if I wish for that. I don't know. I mean, it seems like it would be good for the people of China overall, but that would really screw up our lives.
It would definitely be a distraction for the entire rest of the world as well.
It'd be more than a distraction. It'd be a disruption. And the EU, once again, doing the same thing that we're doing, because honestly, anybody that takes a look under the hood of this thing seems to find the same smoking gun, and it's pointing to the east.
The EU confirms multiple ongoing investigations into TikTok data practices. This is a story that we're just going to cover over and over and over again because it's TikTok. The data ultimately goes to China. And then Oracle pops up and says, no, we host TikTok here. And then we look into the US. Yeah, we look into that and it's like, well, wait, the data is replicated from the US to China. It's like, oh.
But the EU data doesn't even have Oracle as a middleman. They're still on the old system of straight to Beijing.
Because China's right there. I mean, Beijing's not really that far away from Brussels.
And Microsoft or Google in schools and government. This is another long going battle. Remember when Germany, they broke free and then the next iteration of government came through and they're like, no, we love Microsoft. What are you talking about?
And then they broke free again after the licensing fees were crazy.
It just cycles and cycles.
France says non to Office 365 and Google Workspace in schools. That's supposed to be no with a really nasally like
non. This is all about the GDPR and all that business. And when you have the non-paid version of this software, it reports to the US. It stores in the US cloud. And they're like, hey, that's illegal. And Microsoft and Google are like, would you like a paid version? We have that.
Why don't they just use, LibreOffice or the one that runs on Nextcloud that gives you the Ajax collaboration? That would not be unreasonable for students.
That would be unreasonable for school administrators to maintain. And this was probably the biggest story of the week, right?
Yeah.
It's not getting the coverage that I would hope it does in the mainstream media. They are treating this with some serious gloves. Velvet gloves.
The videos I saw, there were no velvet anything in that video.
But you're watching it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You're not watching mainstream media.
There was a lot of violence. Oh, you're saying the media. No, I thought you meant the protesters were being handled. No. No,
the protesters are being beaten and killed. It's the coverage that I question. We get the Verge's version here.
Violent protests break out at Foxconn's iPhone City. This is really... You should be aware of this because this is one of several fires that are burning in China right now that seem a lot more serious than mainstream media is really giving it credit for.
It has since spread to multiple cities. So,
yeah,
there's a lot of it.
It's a dark. Anybody in chat that can engage, anybody in Hong Kong or Shanghai that
don't reveal yourselves.
Yeah, don't reveal yourself. But maybe speak in code or type something out, and just let us know. But in business, they're actually this is not even a negotiation tactic, but in the business section, Foxconn's like, look, we'll write a check to make this go away if you'll go back to work.
I think that was before, though. I think it's escalated far beyond that point. So the big thing about it is. These people are not allowed to leave. They have to live at Foxconn, live and work. Like every day you wake up, you make iPhones. They don't feed you a ton, and then you go back to sleep. You don't get any other things that happen to you. And you're with a bunch of people that might be sick, and you can't leave. So they've had enough. People started escaping, and then there was wholesale, looked like rioting for people. And then also they had promised them back pay and bonuses. Never paid that.
Yeah. It's just like what we heard from India. Remember Foxconn opened the thing in India? The people in India were much quicker to riot.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of people in India are like, oh, you should have just bring all of your production here.
Yeah.
But maybe they're not as tolerant of this kind of behavior.
Yeah. That would be good, though.
So maybe, now this was 5 days ago, so I guess this was before all that happened, but it does seem like China was lifting the boot perhaps a millimeter after they're starting to get serious backlash about this whole zero policy
thing. This BBC headline is terrible.
BBC's terrible.
The headline from the BBC is China claims youth gaming addiction resolved. That's not what they claimed at all. They're not issuing new licenses. They basically captured the gaming industry. It is if you work on this kind of software, you have to apply to a license. And they're just not granting licenses to companies. So like Blizzard World of Warcraft, Diablo, everything but Diablo Immortal, even though they're working with a local Chinese company, even though they've done absolutely everything to comply with stuff, they are leaving.
But they are letting you game more. They're lifting some of the restrictions about hours per day.
It feels a little, when you're growing up, it's like, oh, you can keep playing games, but your only options were like Mavis Beacon teaches typing, Algae Blaster, and like Battle Chess.
Yeah, and get that out of your system, because in 2 or 3 years, you're going to go live at Foxconn.
Do you want to go to live at Foxconn early? No, we'll get back to Mavis Beacon.
There's no gaming at Foxconn. None at all. You can't. All those iPhones are just right there in front of you. You could be playing Candy Crush. You're not allowed. Those are for the Western people. And this is my article of the week. Ziyi Yang. I think Ziyi Yang might be a bit of a shill.
Yeah.
I would encourage you all to read this. MIT Technology Review should be trustworthy, right? we should look to MIT. It's like, oh, those are our technology friends. They understand these things. They know the horror that's going on in the world. Well, Mr. Yang has a different take.
China just announced its new social credit law. Here's what it means. The West has largely gotten China's social credit system wrong, but draft legislation introduced in November offers a more accurate picture of reality. Yes, everybody should read this article, because we're going to, in a later story, we're going to talk about how on social media that the U.S. military was behind certain accounts and blah, blah, blah. That's what this is. It reads like it. One of the things in there says social credit is not going to be used for this and this. But then later in the article, it literally says, oh, local governments are going to use it for the things that I said it's not going to be used for. It's like black is white, up is down.
So his argument is Communist Party actually does not want surveillance. That's not what they're looking for. They would never have a social credit score of individual citizens. That's not something they're interested in. These local governments are just, they're overzealous, and they're doing these things, but they're not doing it with the blessing of the CCP. And they certainly don't have any unified system that all reports back to Beijing. That's just silly.
But then later, the exact quote was something like, oh, it's like the systems that the DHS and the IRS and the FBI and the DEA and your local bank and blah, 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 all use, all tied into one. That's the hope that the system will be someday.
And a system that Macron and Trudeau and Klaus Schwab and a lot of big players have been openly praising recently.
Yeah.
That's a little worrying.
Now, remember also that the protesters... Now, there was one thing that was technically accurate, and it's like this... There was a sentence that I remember reading and thinking, that was very carefully worded. Why would that be very carefully worded? And then I thought about it some more, and I said, oh, it's technically correct, but not actually really correct. And it was talking about how this app has not been used to restrict movements of citizens or track their movements or anything like that. I was like, no, it's the health app. When you go to protest... It's like, oh, lockdown, your code red, you can't get on the train. That app is what's being used to control.
But how would, you remember the bank fraud protests? Mm-hmm. How would that correlation have been made? Because that was not in the same city. They were traveling.
Yeah.
So if there's no command and control, how would you sync that misbehavior with the health app?
Yeah. And remember, there was another Chinese language article from South China Today that we covered like a year and a half, 2 years ago, that talked about how if you were smoking and you put out your cigarette on the floor of the subway station, that was a social credit demerit, which would prevent you from traveling if you got enough of those.
Or
which again,
chewing gum or even spitting.
Yeah.
So
we remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah. MIT Technology Review, no memory. They just can't remember that. And Japan, they are looking like, the gleaming beacon of democracy over there in Asia right now. But they're not immune from all these problems, especially the energy issue that is coming from all the world upheaval. And they have a rather unique suggestion for their citizens.
Tokyo residents urged to wear turtlenecks to save on energy bills. That's pretty much the whole article, too. There's not really anything substantial here other than that.
Well, they've also changed the dress code for high-level government meetings and stuff. So it's not always suit and tie, so you can wear your turtleneck. And in the summer, you can wear shorts and like cooler clothing.
I would love to see somebody in like one of those, power business suits with a really woolly scarf. That should be an okay thing to do.
If we let our leaders dress like that, their frailty would be so much more noticeable.
The way that Ian McKellen dressed in Vicious when he was going out with like the trench coat, the scarf, and the hat, that should be business attire. Like you could just be in that in a meeting, and as you talk, your breath you can see. That would be great.
Whoever looks the most like a pimp on C-SPAN gets an award at the end of the year. That would be great. And a lot of times there will be articles that come out of India, and this article, if you look at the headline, it's like let me explain this to you. I don't understand it. After reading it, do you understand it anymore?
I have an idea, but it's a little nebulous.
Very poorly explained.
Explained. What are personality rights and why Amit Bachchan filed a plea in Delhi HC over them? So this is an actor who has a very distinct way of acting. It's like the way they described it made me think of the Fatboy Slim guy. Just lost his name.
Walken.
Yeah, Christopher Walken. The way that he is, or the way that Andy Serkis played Latka on Taxi was a very distinctive.
Andy Serkis.
Not Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis played the guy that played Kaufman. Yeah. It's a very distinctive style, and that's what I was thinking of, like the whole Taxi thing, because there was a Taxi movie where was it Andy Serkis had to play Andy Kaufman or something? I can't remember.
It was Jim Carrey.
Oh, Jim Carrey.
Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, no, different Andy. I don't know. It's all jumbled together.
Who is Andy Serkis?
I don't know. But that's what made me think of this, because it seemed like this guy was in that scenario. Somebody wanted another actor to play the role like this actor, but that's something that this actor invented.
It was for a lottery type thing. And he was like, no, that's my personality that you're putting on that. But that could be, in America, I think you could just call that parody and get away with it, right?
Yeah.
I think
if it was truly parody.
Just like he's just so powerful and rich that he's able to affect the laws as he wishes. Also, like if you're going with the full gray beard Santa Claus goatee, then why do you go with that hair color? That's a bold choice.
Something ain't right there. It looks like a stick-on goatee. I don't know.
I think the hair is what's stick on.
Oh, Andy Serkis is Gollum. That's why I'm remembering that. Yeah, it wasn't that Andy Serkis. Never mind.
Not nearly the comedic talent
of
Andy Kaufman. And Amazon is still trying to take over the Indian continent or the subcontinent. And they want to do it. They want to spread the cloud. They want to seed the clouds. It seems like they're getting away with it.
Amazon launches a second cloud region in India, pledges $4.4 billion in investment. So I thought this was a really good idea of Amazon to try to capture the market there. Because remember when they were doing the grocery thing, it's like you have to work with local vendors, blah, blah, blah.
But they failed at that.
They failed at that, yeah. But this looks like they learned a lot from their physical infrastructure, and they're trying to do the same thing with the data center infrastructure to beat like the local incumbents.
Also, you got to be looking at what's going on in China, right? And thinking to yourself, there's probably like a 40 to 50% chance that India is that in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I want to be on the ground floor of that.
Yeah. Yeah, look at how many people are in India, and they're going to have a lot of disposable income if India's economy continues on the trajectory that it's on. And
they're still on the upswing in terms of population, whereas China leveling off a little.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more now that people are being killed in the streets.
A lot more.
And over in Russia, yep, stuff's still going on with those Russian tech companies. Some of them have held on longer than others, but it seems like the global zeitgeist toward Russia, one by one, will destroy them all.
Yandex, apparent to review ownership of Russian tech giant and seek divestment. So that's a lot of words to say that Yandex is trying to GTFO Russia.
Owned by the Dutch, oddly enough.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Putin would allow that, right?
The Dutch are, well, yeah, no, this makes sense because it's like the Chinese investments here. If things get really dicey, the government's just going to say, guess what? You don't own that anymore. And we still have it. It's real estate here. What are they going to do? Come collect it?
Well, at that point, they might have been a NATO-triggered war.
So I got the feeling that it was kind of like that. It's like, sure, we'll take the Dutch money, but the people and everything behind Yandex is still in Russia.
Now, there has been a climate of big tech companies being almost more powerful than governments, really pushing people around. But it seems like the current downturn in the economy and everything else has really put some backbone into leaders, even little Brazil.
Brazilian regulator seizes iPhones from retail stores as Apple fails to comply with charger requirement. They're not putting the charger in the box. My suggestion was to just give them a free charger from inventory, but that apparently doesn't fly.
They thought they could get away with it. Now, they did point out that there's an Apple TV or some kind of device that didn't come with a USB cable even. And now, in the US markets and the Euro markets, you still will not get a cable. In Brazil, you're getting a cable. So it might have just taken them a while to do the logistics. Or it might be that the cable is enough cheaper than the charger that they're okay with that.
Plug it into literally anything else to charge it. Can I charge it from an iPad? Yes. Plug your iPhone into the iPad. It will charge. How do I charge the iPad? You plug the iPad into the iPhone.
You turn the cord around. Then it flows in the other direction. All right, we're doing one segment at a time today.
Oh my gosh, that's the end of the government segment?
That's the end of the government segment.
Well, we have a large number of super chats. Pyrotactics 1986. My fellow Kentuckians. Well, hello, welcome. Hope you're still watching. Francisco Ortiz. Thank you. David Thomas. What is this laptop and was it worth it? Currently shopping for a laptop and is frustrating to the extent I seriously, albeit briefly, considered buying a Mac. Help. This is an i7, I think 9th gen. This is the first one that had XE graphics so that I could test XE graphics, and it also has an H20. So this is like an older HP Spectre laptop. I like the screen and I like the convertibility. And I like the fact that it's got an H20 Optane because the Optane really is like super nice. But yeah. So fun times. Did I accidentally close YouTube? I did. Oh no. That was a big oops.
That's fine. It's going to take a minute to do this.
Let's see. YouTube Studio. And then live. And then that. Yeah, it reloaded the thing. All right. Do you hear music? No, I don't think you do.
Maybe just in your head. Oh, you
don't
hear that.
And I'm already almost out of. Oh yeah, we should not be capturing desktop audio.
I don't think we are.
Yeah, it's turned down. Doc Max says, Kentucky, where the men are men and the sheep are nervous. Oh, that's not quite that bad.
We don't really have sheep.
Yeah.
We have cows.
A lot of cows.
Horses.
That is comforting. It's like in the coming apocalypse, it's like, we'll probably still be able to get meat. Mike Farino says, I was watching the Forbidden Router video and you mentioned a DNS video for Steam Cache and Pi-hole. Did I miss that video or is it still playing? No, I think that's out because the how-to for doing that is there. There's also a how-to for that on the forum. I think I did that. Yeah, that's out. If you don't see it, just tag me on the forum or something, but I'm pretty sure it's there. The Steam Cache Docker stuff really makes it easy. So if you have something at home that you can run Docker on, then you can have a Steam Cache DNS Docker container, a Steam Cache storage container, and then you can use Docker for Pi-hole and link it all together. Just assign static IP addresses on your LAN. It works really well, shockingly well. Especially if you got one of those internet connections that's like kind of metered and kind of not. You can cache all your game downloads.
I didn't realize how many car stories we had this week.
Greetings from Chiapas, Mexico. Did I get that right? Where's Krista? Krista is out sick today.
She got the Thanksgiving bug.
I'm kind of surprised she's not lurking in the chat, but that's fine.
She's probably napping.
The air is super dry, so I'm going to be drinking a lot of water. For some reason, the chat's talking about goats. Goats are surprisingly hardy and can survive entirely on grazing with no feed. That's a common thing in eastern Kentucky. It's like you have a hillside that's impossible to mow, just get a couple of goats. Ever play with Stratus versus ZFS? I've been meaning to, but it'll be a long time before I trust something as much as ZFS. DJE4321 asks, Ryan, can you convert your influence? You can convert your influence into gold. Was yelling at the VOD when you had that 100K stash.
What?
I don't know. Maybe that's the we who are about to die.
Oh, yeah. Right now I got a character who is going to inherit. The next character is going to inherit $120,000 and a really nice sword.
What are my thoughts on the Rings of Power?
Have you seen it?
Nope.
I've not. I've only seen the first 2 episodes. Seems like it's not good. I watched first 2 episodes and I never came back, which I think that's pretty telling.
Any thoughts on PyTorch versus Fast AI? Cheers from Cambridge. The thing to watch is Neural Magic, I think, because the sparse matrix stuff and doing sparse matrices on CPUs and then really like 3-bit inferencing on GPUs. It's pretty interesting. All right, we ready? What's this section?
Business.
We are starting the business section. So if you have any super chats, I'll read them at the end.
And you know what we got to talk about with the business section? Now, these rumors, I read these rumors on like day one.
I was like, that doesn't seem real.
But only, other than the New York Post, have you seen anybody saying this kind of stuff? Other than 4chan, the New York Post, and Twitter.
It's happening in the Bahamas. Who's going to go check?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I can believe it.
The New York Post, the headline is Partner Swapping Pills and Playing Games Inside Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX Party House. Okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is all happening on Wall Street in New York City, so...
oh, yeah. This was just a really nice venue for it. There she is, the queen. That's a nice room.
Seems like it'd be a lot of work to keep the floor that shiny.
And not for him. Yeah, for the Bahamian slaves. But if you want to have an Adderall-fueled nerd orgy, that's the kind of floor you want to have it on. Take my word for it.
There's less to obsess about. It's like there's less patterns in the room.
They did have quotes from her and him, SBF and the girl, about like just dropping hints about what their lifestyle was really like. And they were both like, oh yeah, stimulants when you wake up, sleeping pills when you go to sleep. And then she had a quote that was like, I can't believe some people are not on Adderall. I feel so dumb when I'm not on Adderall.
When I was at the doctor's office, I said something or other and something, and it was like, somehow I was like, okay, neuro atypical. And he's like, you seem fine. And I was like, the other room that I was in had 3 ceiling tiles that were out of place. And he went and he checked and he came back and he's like, fair enough.
Yeah, but that could be drug-seeking behavior. Couldn't it?
No, it's just...
No, I mean, I'm not saying you were doing that, but...
No, well, the context of the conversation was more like, I can't help it.
Well, I think Sam Bankman-Fried could have helped it.
Yeah, probably.
I think he made choices here and did this on purpose. Now, this has been taken over by the gentleman who took over Enron He worked through that whole thing, so he's seen some horrible things. He's been out there in the trenches, and this still seemed to shock him to his soul.
FTX lawyer calls this case a different sort of animal in first bankruptcy hearing. I really, CNBC should have worked in the fact that this is the Enron lawyer.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was not him that made that quote. It was one of the lawyers. But he is now the CEO.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they're basically saying it's going to take some time to get all these bodies out of this mud and dirt. And they've done the math. They've crunched the numbers. How bad is it?
The FTX Club's crypto company owes creditors $3.1 billion to court documents show. So it's not as bad as Adelphia, right? That makes it not as bad as Adelphia. Wasn't Adelphia way more than $3.1 billion?
But Adelphia had assets and infrastructure.
Did they, though? They had infrastructure that was sold for pennies on the dollar.
FTX got nothing. FTX got lots of mansions and yachts and stuff, but can they claw that back? I mean, they should be able to.
They technically had a lot of Doge and other stuff, but that seems to have mysteriously walked off.
It was hacked. And we now are finding out, as is often the case when something really terrible happens, the government already knew about it. And for whatever reason, political donations, chose not to do anything.
Congress members tried to stop the SEC's inquiry into FTX. Now, this headline queued me up for a lot more Schadenfreude than there really is in this article. This was not really just FTX. It was a lot of crypto exchanges, and I think even including Coinbase. So this was more like FTX was rolled in with a bunch of other exchanges. But yes, some money probably did change hands because FTX was a prolific political donor or lobbyist organization or whatever. So it wasn't FTX. The headline is FTX benefited from that, but it wasn't just FTX. It was a lot of crypto exchanges, some of which are still around.
These 8 people, and it was 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, so it wasn't like a partisan thing. They did a lot to stop any sort of regulatory look into cryptocurrency. Like they were very adamant that was just going to slow things down. There was no need for it, which is embarrassing for them, even though nobody will ever realize it. And CZ, the other crypto bro, who is the white knight in this scenario, he's the one who uncovered all this and saved us from the Ponzi scheme, although we still suffer from it. He is taking every precaution.
Binance releases a proof of reserves system starting with Bitcoin. This is pretty ingenious. Basically, it allows outside people to audit how much of their holdings are in a particular coin. And so Bitcoin is the example, and it talked about how you can look at their ledger and see that they hold, like 9,000 Bitcoins for customers. You can verify that your deposit is being held in actual Bitcoin. But you can also see that the exchange has about 10,000 Bitcoins available. So it's got a slush fund of about 1,000 Bitcoins.
Probably wouldn't help them if they got hacked, but it's nice to know it's there. And it's taking a while, but more and more of the firms who were exposed to FTX are giving up.
Crypto firm BlockFi files for bankruptcy as FTX fallout spreads. Didn't we predict this last week or the week before? There was some other news for BlockFi. They were like, we have significant exposure. And now it's like, yeah, chapter 11.
No, that was Genesis we were talking about last week.
Okay. They all run together.
Let's resort this real quick because we actually, now that you mentioned Genesis.
Silence from digital currency groups Genesis spooks crypto. They're not responding.
That was on the 21st. I meant to follow that up and I didn't. I don't know if they have said anything since then.
Engagement challenge. What's the latest, chat? Is anybody freaking out? Anybody chain smoking?
Oh, I'm sure they're freaking out. And because we do have the public ledger, we can measure how bad this was for Bitcoin.
More than 50% of Bitcoin addresses are now in loss. Previous bear markets ended with the majority of addresses being out of money, on-chain data shows. So the tulip bulb mania, is it coming to an end or is it entering wave 2?
This time might be different. Different set of circumstances here. And if you are maybe a little bit ignorant to exactly what's been going on, maybe is there a reason that only the New York Post was willing to print the Bahama orgy stories? Could there be something there?
I mean, is that atypical for billionaires at this point? I mean, We literally have a movie about this. Eyes Wide Shut. Those were billionaires, right?
Yeah, but it was fiction.
Is it?
So they didn't tie it to... No, I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm saying the media doesn't tell us about it, which seems to be consistent.
Did Sam Bankman-Fried's millions buy the media's loyalty? Better just law of headlines.
So, yeah, he gave a lot of grants to a lot of names that we see here every week.
Oh, The Intercept.
Yeah. So, did he buy some silence? Maybe? I think he did. But that's just my opinion. Of course, all the tweets of him with people who wish they didn't take these photos. So many of those.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's got my shoes. Now I'm going to have to stop wearing these shoes. And this was all the economic collapse section. And, mostly FTX related, but we do have some more traditional economic collapse stories.
HP will cut up to 6,000 jobs over the next 3 years.
Yikes.
That doesn't seem like a lot of jobs to cut over the next 3 years.
Not as bad as most, I guess. And when it comes to gaming, of course, we're all doing some gaming. We Who Are About to Die is excellent. Although now that I'm at the end of it, I'm feeling like maybe there's not a lot of longevity to it. But I will not stop gaming. However, I'm doing a different kind of gaming, apparently, than the rest of the world.
There will be 3.2 billion gamers in 2022, but the revenue is set to fall for the first time in 15 years.
Yeah, and the horrible reality of that is mobile gaming is this big blue chunk right here. More than half mobile games. What's wrong with you people? And this is sort of an annual tradition at this point. Black Friday, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We always celebrate Black Friday with an Amazon strike.
Amazon workers go on strike for better working conditions in St. Louis.
I think other places picked up as well. There were some Euro places, some other cities. It wasn't that widespread, but they try every year.
Exciting times.
Those people will be purged. And this is what you alluded to earlier, Foxconn. Now, this was on the 24th. This was Thanksgiving Day. They were trying to... They saw that there was a small fire. And they're like, just throw a blanket on that fire. It didn't work.
Foxconn offers workers $1,400 to stop protesting and leave iPhone City. They did not care for that. If anything, that only encouraged them.
I think at that point, they were like, you've already promised this money once. And then refused to pay it.
Yeah.
Although there are some reports that they were just handing out cash. Like they would just give you your cash and like never come back here. Although, how do we know there weren't some cops waiting around the corner to just beat you and then recycle the cash back in to the cash box?
Also, it's really telling that the media suppression is so effective that this is the same article photo as the other photo from earlier in the week.
And there's so much footage that they could be using.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't see very much of it.
Yeah, that's probably the tamest photo you could possibly use because there is, like black fireballs. There's a lot of iPhone screens or something that went up in flames.
Oh, they said I saw the number. They were going to lose hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
iPhone's crazy. But when it comes to business, you do have to think about this. I just saw the big red headline on one of the other stories. The Dow dropped 500 because everybody's like, if there's a Chinese revolution, the entire global structure is about to change. That's going to be bad.
Apple has a huge problem with an iPhone factory in China. Yeah, well, that's the problem.
That was the 26th. So the media was just starting to admit this. CNN was just starting to follow the story on the 26th.
Is the reason that you included this so that we could have the level 1 meta commentary of, is the mainstream media incompetent, or is business, do they see this as business as usual over there, that it has to continue on for a week before it's finally a blip on the radar, and it's initially just I don't know, there's some stuff going on, and it's like, this seems pretty far outside the norm.
Or is there an overwhelming amount of Chinese investment and control in our media apparatus? Or is the media controlled by, like the government influence, and the government's like, we do not want Chinese revolution. Don't look at it like that.
I don't know. It seems like the Indian thing got more coverage and was perhaps a more isolated happening.
Although technically, wouldn't this? I'm getting into very sensitive territory here. I can't say the word. Remember the Canadian trucker protest?
Yeah.
You remember what they were protesting?
Yeah.
They were terrorists. Do you see anybody painting the Chinese Foxconn people as terrorists?
No.
Totally different outlook.
Even though that is a large part of it, like the whole.
It's the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's not just the working conditions.
I mean, sure, not being paid. That's something to be angry about. But we've seen in the past, how many times has Foxconn not paid people?
Yeah.
Just countless times.
See, also India. Like it's not. It's like I wonder if you're a Chinese worker and you see the news out of India, and it's like, oh, it's not just because we're Chinese.
I don't think they let them see that. And we've all suffered for the last 2 to 3 years not being able to find our precious GPUs. It looks like that is over. However, the price was high.
GPU market nosedives, sales lowest in a decade. Intel solidifies its GPU position as the graphic markets slump.
How would you can't spin that as being good timing.
No.
That's the worst timing.
The worst time.
Intel's done some terrible timing there.
It's Nvidia said that their warehouse stocks are looking pretty good, which I'm a little skeptical of. But the AMD GPU prices have really leveled off. You can get a 6650 now for under $300 or right at $300, which is a steal compared to, the last 3 years, 4 years. So I don't know. It's really, and then, Intel's putting pressure on both AMD and Nvidia. So even though their drivers are a little buggy right now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Pressure's always good. And Europe is under pressure to not let their people freeze to death this winter. That is a real concern, and they're making steps toward it. This is an interesting one.
Europe's biggest battery storage system has been switched on in Cottingham. Last week, somebody helpfully sent in the pronunciation. It's Loughborough.
I don't remember what we were talking about.
It looked like it was Loughborough or something. But it's Loughborough, apparently.
Is that a city?
Thank you, random citizen.
So this is similar to the Australian thing, although Elon Musk is not. It was made by Tesla. Oh, I missed that part. They said it could run the entire city for something like 6 hours. So I guess that could get you through a really rough night, maybe.
Yeah.
A cold snap night, but then the next morning you'd be in trouble.
Not Europe, but that was one of the things with the UK. Everybody turning their kettles on all at once. This would help with this kind of thing, especially if you had a distributed battery system. Everybody's going to make tea at the same time. It's like every building has a power wall basically to deal with that.
Maybe they can just drink water. And we know that Taiwan is bringing chip production to the U.S., but for a while there, we didn't know if they were going to bring like the real AAA stuff over here. We thought maybe they're just going to make the lesser known chips. Although it seems like it's going to be so expensive. And here they say they expect it to be 55% more expensive.
Yeah.
So I guess it only makes sense at those prices to do the top-notch stuff.
Taiwan's TSMC to bring its most advanced chip manufacturing to Arizona, according to CNN Business. Now, I took a little bit more monkey's paw translation headline with this, and we'll see how this ends up being right or not. I think that they're saying that TSMC is going to bring to Arizona what is currently their most advanced chip manufacturing. But by the time it shows up in Arizona, it will no longer be the most advanced chip manufacturing. But they still plan to bring what will then be the next most advanced chip manufacturing to Arizona as quick as it can come to Arizona, which they figure is probably going to take a year or two.
But then you would constantly be 5 years behind the curve. Which might be what they want.
Yeah, and I think that'll be okay because look at, our automotive industry would be perfectly happy with, 35 nanometer old school CMOS technology for their power transistors. They'd be perfectly fine with that.
Well, maybe not, because those old parts are being replaced. When our fancy cars, we're getting a new kind of communication hub, which changes everything.
Automakers are locking out the aftermarket out of ECUs. Two industry experts explain that increased cybersecurity means for tuning shops and customers. This is just the whole right to repair. Anything that they can do to undermine right to repair, they absolutely will do.
They really went with a lot of Mustang pictures in this article. So it's going to be these new Mustang, I don't remember what the model number is. Also, they pointed out the new Corvettes, the C8 Corvettes, will have encryption, and the old Nissan GTR getting encryption on the ECU.
Encryption is fine, but this is like saying, you can't do e-commerce unless you have chip and pin transaction, and it's like we did chip and pin, we did e-commerce without chip and pin until like last year.
Now, if they wouldn't let aftermarket chip makers get in there and give you more performance, I wonder what the end game of that could possibly be.
Mercedes locks faster acceleration behind a $1,200 annual paywall. So you have to pay $1,200 a year if you want the maximum acceleration of your car.
Now, these are only the electric vehicles, and Tesla's already done this.
Yeah. You're subscribing to features.
Do you have to pay annually with Tesla? I don't remember.
I don't think for the acceleration. I think, but you do have to change. Like when you sell the car and somebody else buys it, they turn features off.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there was an economist that modeled like what happens when everything becomes subscription and the economy becomes so inelastic that innovation ceases.
Chinese Revolution, I think, is what happens during that time. And Tesla, here is, let's make a list of all the parts of the car that don't need software behind them. Number one would be the lights, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the steering already has software, which is questionable. Braking and acceleration, okay, if you're going to automate the car, maybe you have to have that. But the lights, the switch to turn on the lights.
Tesla recalls more than 15,000 Australian electric vehicles over faulty tail lights. The issue can be fixed with a software update, but leads to EV manufacturers' third recall in Australia this month. Why?
I gotta wonder, all you Tesla nerds, and I know you're out there in the audience because you always comment on YouTube, how are you feeling now that Elon Musk has become the enemy of your people? Still feeling good about that T on your car? And Caterpillar has made a very impressive vehicle. I'm surprised. How much of that do you think is battery? Like it's 40% battery?
Maybe it's it's like Caterpillar successfully tested its first all-electric large mining truck. I kept looking for more information on this on Caterpillar's website because it's got to be like a tiny gas engine that's continually charging the batteries, and it just uses the batteries for acceleration and everything else. Maybe not, but that would be my thought.
37 miles per hour, but even the ones that run on fuel probably don't go that fast, right?
Yeah, 37 miles per hour for a tire that is 10 feet in diameter is impressive.
It went uphill and downhill, and it finished its course, like the test course, and then still had enough juice to do another one. So I guess that's good. And Intel is doing exactly what the car companies are doing. They want to sell you one single unit so they don't have to have a bunch of different SKUs, and then they want to remotely dictate how you can use it.
Intel officially introduces pay-as-you-go chip licensing. This is the new Xeon Sapphire Rapids CPU, and it's going to have accelerators in it. So accelerators for things like quick sync, which could be used for a lot of things, AI, maybe communications acceleration, etc., etc. So you probably don't need those features out the gate, or they're specialty customers, and so you can pay per usage or you can pay to unlock. I think this is ultimately like, okay, whatever. Whether you think this is insane or not, I think this is probably the wrong way to do it. I think the right way to do it would have been, you get, if you buy like the 8 or the 16 core chip, that the other cores are there and you can unlock them later. Because if you had a business that would let you, pay and then pay later to get a CPU upgrade without changing your CPU, you'd probably do it. But I don't think you'll do it for the accelerators.
But here's the problem with this. The anti-consumer stuff that they'll have to do to keep me from unlocking it.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
It's like, oh, you tried to unlock your CPU without a valid license. It's a brick now.
You're going to spend 3 hours on the phone with a call center only to be told that you broke it and it's your fault. Send us money. You alluded to this one earlier. Microsoft is doing everything they can to convince all the world governments that they should be able to snap up Activision. And every argument that people are making against it, they have to defend, but in some cases it's difficult. So you kind of have to fudge.
Microsoft argues that Nintendo offers a broader range of mature content than Xbox. I disagree.
I'm not super conscious of the Xbox library and what's in there. So they point out Bayonetta. Are you familiar with Bayonetta?
Yeah.
She's like a sexy girl witch with guns. Witcher 3, which has boobs and like lots of sex in it, I think. And they're like, oh, look, those games are on the Switch. That's not family friendly.
Okay. I mean, bravo, lawyer, for coming up with the argument, but come on, let's be real. That is, if anything, an argument that's actually in favor of not Microsoft. If that's Microsoft's argument, is that Nintendo is less family friendly.
Also, that's not even the biggest argument against the merger, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on. And Cisco, it seems like a lot of business models that may have squeaked by when times were fat and we were all doing well are no longer going to fly in the economic downturn.
Cisco faces resistance to software bundles from cost-conscious companies. What this article fails to mention is that there's a lot of companies out there that are doing things in the same space as Cisco for way cheaper and or free.
Rather than a huge subscription for stuff that you'll never need and don't even understand. But they'll tell you need it. And boy, Google search has really fallen off.
It really has.
It is astonishing how bad Google is at search now. Who would have ever imagined that? They've gotten so complacent. But they're telling us just how hard it is, by gosh, because there's so many things you have to think about when you're a search company.
60% of the internet is duplicate, according to Google. They would know. They've indexed it all.
A lot of people were like, what exactly does duplicate mean? So he did refine it in a tweet.
Remove protocol duplicates, remove www with non-www, remove URLs with useless parameters, remove / no / variant, and other checksum duplicates. So
strip away the marketing, basically.
Yeah.
Netflix, I think maybe they're recognizing that they're under existential threat in the streaming wars and they have to pivot to something else. I don't know what made them think they could do this.
Netflix is working on a brand new AAA PC game, according to job listings. It's a Stranger Things game, right? It's got to be.
I don't know if they announced it. They're not really announcing much about this. It's all based on the jobs that they're trying to get. They did hire this guy who was part of the Overwatch team. Krista, I'm sure, could tell us something about him if she were here.
Well, if they're doing Overwatch, maybe it is going to be some sort of multiplayer online thing.
I don't know why that helps Netflix. They're going to do a TV show about it? Or a streaming show? And Amazon, like we said earlier, doing what it can to take over India, but they're not all winners.
Amazon to shut down its online learning platform in India. Engagement challenge. Did you ever look at that or use it or see what it was? See how it goes? I think that this was one of those things that they did. Because remember, it was a footnote in the grocery article. It was like the grocery chain. It's like, oh, we're going to do this. It's going to help the kids. And it's going to be a great initiative for Amazon. And then nothing came from it.
Well, they have the national testing.
Yeah.
So it's like a prep for that test.
So
you will get a refund if you were signed up for the next semester of it or whatever.
We created this thing that's going to help you and we'll charge people for it, but we'll mostly just give it away. Okay.
Turns out you guys don't need to go to college because you're all going to be working at Foxconn. We've discovered. So we're just going to cancel this. And Harvard has some interesting advice, although it's advice for people that you might not think. They're basically telling despots and theocrats how to circumvent the rules.
Harvard paper to central banks. Buy Bitcoin. Okay. It's really, there's more to it than that. And you read it and no, there really isn't. It says that because Bitcoin is down so much, now is the time for central banks to buy it.
And if you're going to get sanctioned by the U.S., the best way to sidestep that, now this is an American university telling you this, best way to sidestep those U.S. sanctions is Bitcoin. And there's no time like the present to build up your reserves.
We laugh, but then we think back to the stories about HSBC doing like there was, here's some duffel bags of cash that have blood and bits of brain matter on them. It's like, oh, we'll make the deposit window larger so that your duffel bags will fit through the window. HSBC was They literally did that, and they got it. They were just barely noticed for that.
Which is the wildest thing about that story is that is a scene from Scarface. No one at HSBC has seen that movie, I guess. Well, the Steam Deck has certainly been a shot in the arm for Linux gaming and, display stuff going forward there.
It is surprisingly good.
Now they have another option for us.
Valve introduces Proton Next. So you can play games that have like the test version of Proton and see how it goes and report back, which will help accelerate things even more.
And it's easier to do.
Yeah.
Just have to right click and launch it under this. There's just an option there, so you don't got to switch all the branches and everything. Seems very convenient. I've never heard of Unravel 2. Not sure why that's featured here. And Grand Theft Auto Online generates an obscene amount of money. Almost as much as those people you were talking about doing business with HSBC. Same kind of product, right? Addictive. But they have decided not to mess around with this, and I got to think that the current situation in the crypto world has a lot to do with that.
Crypto and NFTs are not welcome in Grand Theft Auto Online. Rockstar follows similar recent ban by Mojang and Microsoft for Minecraft.
Now this fella right here, Lil Durk, you're familiar with Lil Durk,
No,
of course.
I have no idea.
Yeah, me either. He has created a GTA role-playing server with some kind of cryptocurrency NFT integration. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but from now on, it ain't going to work at all.
I think the more people that are unsure of how it works get roped into the scam. Is that how that works?
You mean like FTX? So they're shutting that down. That's tough day for him. And Zoom, man, I watch a lot of Zoom trials because all that stuff is on YouTube now. And some people are going through and curating it for the interesting stuff, and you can just sit and listen to court proceedings all day while I play We Are Who About to Die. I highly recommend that as an entertainment device. But the Zoom technology is terrible. Mm-hmm. They constantly have trouble communicating. It's bad. I think it's just bad.
Zoom shares down 90% from peak as the pandemic boom has faded.
And Zoom is bad.
Yeah. Pretty much everything is bad. Anything that was remotely good. You remember the version of Google Hangouts that was entirely web-based? That was good. It was a relatively lightweight client. You didn't have to install anything. It worked from the web. It worked pretty reliably from the web, especially if you use Chrome. And they have just destroyed all of that.
I never used it for video.
Everything is just unreliable now.
Well, another thing about the economic downturn is that hopefully a lot of these gaming companies that are getting beaten down are not going to be able to support their own stupid game stores. They are probably going to fold those up, and it can't come soon enough.
Ubisoft is back to releasing games on Steam, including Assassin's Creed Valhalla. As we've always said, vote with your wallet. It's like, oh, don't, Remember when Borderlands 3 launched on not Steam and no one bought it?
Several games have been like that. They're coming home. They're coming home to Gaben. They're going to crawl up in his lap and purr.
I like to think that Gaben is like a benevolent dictator and he just murders you with kindness. When he gets those emails from companies like Ubisoft and they're like, trying to strong arm a deal, it's like, how much money you're going to give us up front to use Steam? And Gaben's just like, gee whiz, guys, I don't know if we can do that.
You know what, though? And I'm not sure if Steam does this, but the way the Xbox Game Pass does it is like, oh, this is an EA game. It's included. And you're like, okay, I'll click on that, and it launches EA. So you still have to have both of the horrible services. And iCloud is having a bit of an issue. This is definitely not what you want to happen with your iCloud because you know how they say it's so secure and everything, and these are your private moments and photos.
iCloud for Windows users claim images and videos from strangers are showing up in their library. You should read this for the description of what's happening because it's horrifying. And this is also maybe a warning story about how badly you can fail at scale. I could imagine that something like this could go wrong, and you would have a difficult time recovering from it as a company like Microsoft, because they were saying that people's iPhone videos were recompressed and stored badly versus the original, and also had random other people's files in with the compression. Like there was a hardware bug or a software bug. A GPU was doing 2 different encodings at once and got something mixed up, and I don't know, just a mess.
If that happens in Europe and it accidentally leaks a nude, is Microsoft then violating that new law?
Yeah. Microsoft was violating the law 4 or 5 different ways, I think, for the way that it works in the European. But how much more horrifying is it that you upload something to the cloud and what the cloud is actually storing is different than what you actually stored?
Yeah, that's like, why would it need to be that way?
Yeah.
There's no reason for it to be that way. I guess format shifting so that it'll play on
and take up less space, and it's like, no, stop that. No.
Well, here's a warning for those of you who keep holding out. I just replaced my dad's laptop because there was no chance that laptop was ever going to be Windows 11 compatible.
Windows 8.1 is on its deathbed. Prepare now. 8.1 support ends January 10th. Got to go to Windows 10. Windows 7 is already dead. So if you're still on Windows 7, I know there's a few of you in the audience. It's time to go to Linux.
And there is no 8 to 11 path, but you can go 8, 10, 11. But after that, I can't imagine that poor file system.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
No. It's just do a clean install. Windows still benefits from a clean install.
But then that new release candidate, or the newest update for Windows 11, you now have to go in and do like registry edits if you want to do no Microsoft account.
Yeah.
Which is just like unplugging from the internet is no longer enough.
Yeah. On 1 or 2 of the test machines here, I've gotten the really aggressive. It was just from the Windows 11 update to like the Windows 11 22 H2 update. And after that update installed, it was like, you really need to set up a Microsoft account. I was like, no, I really don't. It was like, no, you really, really do. And I had to click back and forth a few times. And then it was like, all right, I guess I'll let you in.
That's what the customer wants, right? And Amazon, this is a weird one. I think this is a bad choice. I don't see this coming back, but maybe people will be so nostalgic for the before times, this will let them forget. I don't know.
Movie theater stocks pop after a report says Amazon plans to spend $1 billion on releases. You know who else is doing experiments right now? Netflix. Netflix has got 2 things in theater, or 2 things slated for theater. The Knives Out Glass Onion video, which is like Knives Out Part 2, but it's a different story, I guess. That's in theaters today and tomorrow, and then it's gone, and it'll be in Netflix on December 23rd. So if you want to see the new Knives Out movie, I really liked the Knives Out, the first Knives Out movie. I went into it knowing nothing, and that was great.
That's going to completely disrupt, though, like, if it's only in the theaters for 2 days, how do you compare it against other movies in terms of financial success?
It was in for a week. And so
that's still a tiny amount of time.
Well, the model apparently, like, you can compute how it would have been because a week is enough data.
Well, they're also looking to sort of break new ground in the TV world, doing something completely different, I guess.
Netflix reveals Kaleidoscope, a series designed to be watched in any order you choose. And it's like a heist film from the perspective of the participants that have been planning the heist for 20 years. How much did Netflix pay us for this episode? I hope they paid us good.
A lot of advertising.
Netflix is so desperate they're advertising with Level 1. It's like, don't cancel your Netflix subscription. Can you get a discount on your Netflix subscription if you go watch it in the movie theater?
That you think that would move people? Because I don't feel moved.
No.
That doesn't attract me.
I am contemplating going to watch the Knives Out movie in theaters.
Oh, wow, really?
Because I really like the movie.
Even during RSV or whatever?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's probably not a good idea. I might have to check the magical hard drive and see if it's there.
And Nintendo, oh boy, are Nintendo awful. And they just can't stop being awful. No matter how obscure or benign your using of their property is, they will find you and they will destroy you.
Nintendo goes after fan-made custom Steam icons with DMCA takedowns. This is Ars Technica headline. That's not actually accurate. They're going after custom-made Steam icons that feature original Nintendo artwork. But if somebody has their own artwork that they've used to make a thumbnail, they haven't. And so if you set up your Steam library to call an emulator and you would like a Zelda thumbnail, you can get that from this website that they talk about in the article. And that's what Nintendo is taking down. They're taking down most of the thumbnails that feature like the box art or anything that looks original. But if you have something that you created originally, they've been careful to avoid taking those down. But yes, Nintendo is an awful company. They don't understand their fandom, and they too ruthlessly pursue their intellectual property.
But the real goal there, they don't care about those images.
No.
What they care about is a chilling effect on any kind of emulation.
Yes.
You know what? Trending now, I didn't get this in the story list. Let's just go ahead and let's just do one that we haven't even read. This is a hell of a headline, though, huh?
Elon Musk claims Apple has threatened to remove the Twitter app. I saw this, and Elon Musk also said that if that happens, he will do his own Android-based phone, and he'll make some really good Android phones, and that's been on his list for a long time.
The Tesla phone.
Yeah.
What a crazy world. How quickly it all turned around.
Yeah.
It's just astonishing.
Like, oh, if you don't have any moderation or content controls, we'll kick you from the App Store. And it's like, well, okay.
Wow.
Or we're going to let other accounts come back or whatever. You know, I don't know.
That's good business.
Grant McGregor, $10. Thank you for showing off the M.2 to Gigabit NIC. I have one with the PCIe adapter inside my case. It works nicely with my x86 cluster, and it's almost done with setup. They make those even in 10 gig. The 10 gig one's got a beefy heatsink on it, but works well. USS Liberty incident. Talking about who controls the media these days is a quick way to get canceled. I hope Krista gets well soon. And taking bets on how long it'll be until the Intel accelerator lock is bypassed. I'd say a month, maybe two. This is not technically the first time Intel did this. There was a Celeron processor you could unlock a little while ago. Somebody, Engagement Challenge, somebody in the chat knows probably more about it than that. Neil Hubert says, on a break at work, back at it shortly, but I wanted to show support for the greatness that is the Level 1 show. Thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I gotta go potty. I'll be right back.
Wow. It's going to be difficult to sort stories and talk to you at the same time. This would be a great time to have Krista here so she could tell us about her garden or something. How was your Thanksgiving, chat? I'm not actually reading your answers, but pretend that I am. Mine was stressful. I don't enjoy Thanksgiving. I'm glad it's over. I'm not going to sort these very strongly. They're all kind of sorted because I'm now using subcategories, which is a pro move. You know what I'll do? I'll go ahead and sort robot while we're at it, since we have some free time. Some space stories. It's always good to have space stories. Those are usually like feel-good stories to cut all of the horribleness that we're dealing with in the world today. Not always. Sometimes bad things happen in space. What else has happened since we last talked to you? Got some new tires on my truck. I just got the phone call right before I came here. So officially, those of you that were keeping score, my truck got new tires before Krista got her headlight replaced. She's still rolling on 3 years of one headlight. That's the kind of low effort lifestyle she's living right now. All right, you know what? We'll save nonsense for another sort. I'm gonna ask, how's the cat? I have 2 cats. They're okay. They're both fine. You know, Toast is a little obese. Probably not the best in health for him, but what am I going to do about it? How much for the new tires? I think they were like $350 a piece, but they're nice tires. How's the Corvette? Corvette's fine. Talk about BlockFi? I don't know too many details about BlockFi other than they're probably going away. Three years and never been pulled over for a headlight out? Yeah, well, it's rural living. They don't bother too much with that.
Oh, I don't think she goes out after dark either.
She drives her husband's car.
Welcome back, chat. What do we got now?
We're going to do social and robot.
Social and robot. Woo!
So we'll start with kind of a weird sort because we only had one Twitch story this week. And Twitch has had a problem with this for some time.
Yeah.
I mean, it is something that you would think would attract kids. I'm pretty sure we've had some underage people in our chats, which is weird because our chat skews really old. Really old.
Twitch says it's getting better at detecting and blocking young users. The streaming platform announced a handful of safety measures designed to keep young users off the platform, safe and safe from potential child predators. I was one of those people. I definitely made people not a predator.
Twitch didn't exist when you were young.
Yeah.
You need to clarify.
Yeah, it was on BBSs and things. I was young enough that I made everybody uncomfortable. So that was fun.
But at least those were the kind of guys who were uncomfortable and not like, oh.
Yeah, the one guy who's like, it's like, oh, yeah.
Do you like Vans? And Tumblr doing something interesting. I feel like Tumblr kind of lost their way. They lost their identity when they took away the adult content. And now they're like, I don't know, what can we do? This is an interesting idea, though. And I don't think this is a big enough name, but if a couple of other big names pick this up, it could maybe become a thing.
Tumblr to add support for ActivityPub, the social protocol powering Mastodon and other apps. This cannot come soon enough. This is sort of a short version of the article on TechCrunch, but there's actually kind of a lot of buzz and things happening around this. If Tumblr had been a little bit more on the ball, they could have probably taken some of the wind out of the sails of Mastodon, because Mastodon's fun, but it's...
But you could have both in this scenario.
Yeah.
It's just basically like, although that kind of gives a license to like whenever the crowd moves against whatever you are and moves on to the next thing, there's nothing to hold your users there. Yeah. They'll just pack up all their stuff, go to the next tent.
Yeah.
And Twitter, now I have seen a lot of headlines about the mass exodus from Twitter. Have you been seeing all those? Like the people are abandoning it. All these journalists are like, Twitter's done. I'm moving on to something else. But according to Mr. Musk, now can we trust Mr. Musk?
No.
I don't know. I've never trusted him in the past. But he claims...
The Reuters headline is that user signups are at an all-time high and touts features of an everything app. Adding a bunch of stuff, doing this kind of thing. I haven't abandoned the platform, but I'm also not betting the farm on the platform. I have other outlets that I'm working on to feed my addiction, I suppose.
But that everything app is also in response to the Apple threat. Like... People are now using Twitter. If you try to stop that by cutting it out of your app stores, then I'll be forced to try to take your business as well.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was a meme or real or not, but you know how when you're not logged into Twitter, it harasses you? Like you can look at one thing and then as soon as you scroll, it's like, oh, it's better if you log in. I think somebody commented that they were taking that out. Like some developers like, oh, I got to figure out how to do this in like a week. Which is good. I'm glad that he's going the opposite of Instagram model because I cannot it's very often the case that I'll search for something and then just remove, like use minus Instagram to hide all the Instagram results from Google, because good Lord, I cannot stand that.
That doesn't seem like it should take a week to remove.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't know what kind of infrastructure you're dealing with.
Well, Meta, also interesting, and we didn't actually touch this for a reason. I guess I'm playing into the censorship just because I don't have the energy anymore to try and uncover the bodies and everybody and have the brigade come after me. But did you see the stuff about the child predator hashtags on Twitter?
No.
So apparently there were known hashtags on Twitter, which if you searched for, you would get that content. And nobody ever did anything about it. Huh. And there were these accounts that were like, their whole world was just screaming about it. Like, why is nothing happening here? And like a week after Musk showed up, they're gone. Oh. So did that light a fire under all the other social medias to have to do something about this?
Meta is on the prowl for quote unquote suspicious adults messaging teenagers.
Twitch all of a sudden? Now Meta?
Yeah.
Everybody's all of a sudden interested in this?
What if the suspicious adults don't know they're messaging a teenager?
I think when they do those stings, like the Chris Hansen type stuff, they're very upfront about that.
What if you just, you're really excited about serial terminals or something, and you join a serial terminal user group, and, you're 12. It's like, I really love serial terminals, and all the people in the serial terminal user group are like, 30, 40 years old.
What's going to happen in that scenario is you're going to get molested. Now, this one's interesting. Do you remember years and years ago, the Air Force story?
Yeah.
And then the U.S. Postal Service story?
Yeah.
We already knew this.
Fake Facebook and Instagram accounts promoting U.S. interests had tied to U.S. military, Meta says. This is like the MIT article review about China, but it's about the U.S.
See, once again, I wonder if this is like, oh God, Musk is going to find out about this and tell everybody, hurry, do something. And MetaMask, I used this when we sold our ill-fated NFT. I have no idea what happened to that money. I imagine it's worth like 3 cents at this point, so probably not a big loss.
Infura collecting MetaMask users' IP Ethereum addresses after privacy policy update. That makes sense. That it's just mine the data as much as possible.
Because you're not making money on the crypto anymore. So maybe stay away from that. You can use your own whatever. You don't have to use theirs. And if you use your own, they can't get that. So you need to go through the annoyance of setting up your own RPC. Remote procedure call. Yeah, that makes sense. You're basically using theirs. And the old Facebook pixel. It's there. We discovered it was on government websites. Remember that? Mm-hmm. But guess where else it is?
Tax filing websites. They've been sending users' financial information to Facebook. TaxAct, TaxSlayer, and H&R Block are sending sensitive data. So this was a pixel that just captures everything that you fill out on a form. And that includes financial data. And is it naive to think that Meta wouldn't use that data or write routines that go through and parse that data and then do stuff with it?
I would suspect so.
Seems likely.
And Apple, they have, as we know, taken on their own version of the advertising ID to the detriment of all the other companies that use the advertising ID. They tell us that it's better for us and that it's safe, but is it?
Apple device analytics contain an identifying iCloud user data, claim security researchers. So it turns out that like your iCloud user ID, like your globally unique user ID, is part of stuff in the analytics. So Apple could absolutely identify an individual user from the data collected via analytics. I mean, this is one of the first things that Google stopped doing to be compliant with laws all over the world in like 2003. And they actually will turn off your Google Analytics account if you have some JavaScript on your site that'll take an email address and explicitly track an email address as like another dimension of the the data. Like if somebody logs into your website and then you submit an event to Google Analytics, including their email address, to use that as a tracking thing, they will ban your account because that's not okay under a lot of law.
And we've covered the Spanish and Italian crackdowns on illegal streaming services. They have these unified streaming services, the thing that we all dream of, having all the streaming services in one low monthly fee. But it was illegal. And in Italy, they went after not just the people who ran the show, but the people who subscribed to it. They mailed them things and was like, yep, send us money or we're coming after you. How did they know?
Police tracked traffic of all national ISPs to catch pirate IPTV users. I don't know. So we covered this story last week or the week before. That's like, oh, it's shut down. But if the police seized control of the streaming sites, they wouldn't have needed to track it all. They could have just said, everybody trying to access this website and get to the subscription, we see who you are.
But that wouldn't have given them an excuse to monitor everybody's traffic.
51 euros is what it's like, pay the fine or don't do it again, or 51 euros.
And like 90% of those people will pay that?
Probably.
Disgusting. Well, here's one that it sounds terrifying. The headline sounds terrifying, but then when you read it, it gets even more terrifying because this is literally turning us into servitors. You get to keep your brain, but you have to turn it off while you're being used, which is it's a special kind of dystopia.
Are you ready for workplace brain scanning? This is from the spectrum.ieee.org, which is a pretty... IEEE is the standards committee for stuff. So this should be pretty good reading.
So the idea... Let me find the animated GIF that's lurking down here somewhere. Oh, it's so long. So much scrolling. Oh, wait a minute. Did you not see an animated? Oh, here it is. Here it is. So take a look at this. This is the easiest way to explain it. Your brain cannot process those images that quickly. You can't form thoughts to be like, oh, I see. Oh, come on.
I saw a handgun.
Come on, IEEE. But it took you a few minutes, right? And if this was just constant, you're seeing it on a loop. You probably caught the handgun 3 or 4 loops in. Yeah. But your brain does change when it sees the handgun before you cognitively processes it. So this thing claims that it can pick that up. So basically, it's just borrowing your optic nerves and your brain infrastructure and utilizing them for something else. But you do have to stay focused. It's kind of like...
Excellent.
It's kind of like the navigators from Dune or from Warhammer, right?
That was one of the reading programs that helps you focus too. Is for neuroatypical people, I guess would be the way that it's described now. When you're reading a book, it would show you one word at a time and flash it really rapidly, and that was a way to keep you focused on what you were reading. So
originally, you would need a conductive gel to put those things on your head. Now they have the dry version. You don't need conductive gel. Imagine 20 years from now when it's just a little thing behind your ear and they've got monitors who aren't recording video, but could immediately react to anything that they've programmed as a trigger.
Yeah, I prefer to think of the future in a much more horrific way. Like you would have to snort some nano dust or something. And it's just the little microscopic particles that just, go through your nasal membrane directly into your brain. It's like, oh yeah, here, just snort this gold dust.
Yeah, well, if you want to visit any of the theme parks in Elon Musk's area of New China, you got to snort the dust just to get in.
They have to make sure you're not a terrorist with the dust.
Exactly. And Google has pointed out that they have failed. Good job, Google.
Google says Google and other Android manufacturers haven't patched security flaws. Millions of phones with Mali GPUs are at risk from exploits months after ARM issued a fix, Project Zero suggests. And our next story, if we got the sort right.
I didn't sort very much at all. Very unlikely. No, this is not it. This is, this is just pointing out the terror of, Europe is probably going to freeze because they don't have enough energy. Well, in the U.S., we might have enough, but it'll be destroyed by hackers.
Microsoft says attackers are hacking the energy grids by exploiting decades-old software. Oh, the particular one they point out in here is an old school open source web server that I'd never even heard of.
BOA.
BOA, yeah.
So BOA runs, it's like, it's how you configure your Internet of Things devices like cameras or whatever. And why would anybody ever worry about that? It's only going to run on the local network.
Oh, well, we got to put it on the internet.
It's a problem. Yeah.
It's like mainframes. It's like nobody ever anticipated putting a mainframe on the internet, and yet we have.
Moving on to space, we got some good news about space because we've had a couple of successful things happen in the past week.
SpaceX launches tomato seeds and other supplies to the International Space Station. This is part of a study to see if we can grow plants in space that require a lot of water, like tomatoes.
These are going to be the little tiny tomatoes.
Yeah, they still take a lot of water. Those are a delicious snack, too.
Especially if you've been eating paste for the last 6 months.
Yeah. Or no meat, as the case turns out.
And this gentleman is going to be the first man in space with only one leg.
Europe names the world's first disabled astronaut. He's part of a study as to what it would take to get astronauts that have disabilities into space. I don't know what you're not supposed to say have disabilities. What are you supposed to say?
Handy capable. He is a Paralympian, and I guess he uses the blade leg to run, and he's certainly faster than both of us.
Yes.
So he might not have that much of a trouble up there in space. Good luck to him. And the Artemis rocket took off on its way to the moon. Everything went well, but there might have been a little too much power in those boosters.
NASA launch pad sustained significant damage during Artemis takeoff. Elevator blast doors were blown right off. The blast doors didn't survive the blast. No, the Artemis. This article is probably one of the better Artemis launch was successful articles because it talks about the stuff they learned from the launch. But this is in preparation for a 2025 manned moon mission, and this went really well. Hats off and congratulations to NASA for this. They did a nice job.
But you're gonna have to rebuild the
blast doors,
the launch vehicle every time because it's a little too much.
You think the engineers are like, yeah?
Well, the engineers on the rocket team were saying, yeah. The engineers on the blast door team, not as excited about it. But it did make it. Everything went well. It's up there, and everything is as expected.
NASA's Orion capsule reaches the moon on its way to a record-breaking lunar orbit. Woo!
It's got to go around the moon to slow down with the moon's gravity. Then it's going to be ready.
If I understood correctly, it doesn't have the lander, but the next version of this would be equipped with the lander, but it has a dummy load or something that would be like the lander.
Right.
Something.
This is going to stay up there and monitor things and then eventually come back home.
Okay.
Yeah. And San Francisco, now we just a couple of weeks ago talked about they had a meeting in San Francisco and they were like, hey, these robots that you're rolling out have guns. Are you going to pledge that you will not shoot people with those guns? Those guns are for bombs, right? And the cops are like, no, we will not promise that. And now, instead of not promising, they're actually telling us we want to do exactly that.
San Francisco police seek permission for its robots to use deadly force. I love the subheadline. Have we learned nothing from RoboCop? There's still a remote person that's going to pull the trigger.
ED-209? Was that what that guy was called?
ED-209 is like once it realized what happened was because it was a servitor type situation, if I recall correctly.
One of the I remember in my memory ED-209 being so terrifying and impressive. And then you go back and watch it now, it's that stop motion. Yeah. And you're like, oh, ruined my memories. They should remake RoboCop with all the same level of violence.
I think they've remade RoboCop 2 or 3 times. They just weren't very good.
You got to double down on the violence like they did originally. That was an insanely violent movie. And RoboCop, I guess you could say he had an exoskeleton.
Yeah.
In many ways. Yeah. Different than this one.
U.S. Air Force tests exoskeleton to give cargo loading porters a boost. It's legs only, but they apparently can use it because they're wheeling these heavy safes or filing cabinets, whatever that is, onto cargo planes.
It's the stuff that's like rolls out of the plane in flight to deliver to. So you could do like Humvees, people.
It seems like it would be really hard on your knees, but maybe not.
Yeah, I wonder what is the point of leverage, right? Is that just your femur that's supposed to carry all that? They claim it was pretty good. Now, what motivated them for this, and they make no secrets about it, is not like, oh, we need to give these guys a break. It was the overwhelming amount of disability payments we're paying out from people who get injured doing this. And moving on to some actual robots, South Korea has a new bus.
South Korea capital launches a self-driving bus experiment. It's on a track.
No, I don't think this one's on a track. It's got a safety driver.
Circuit, I guess, is probably the right.
Oh, right. Yeah. It only runs one loop.
Yeah.
And you get on at certain times of day. But everybody says it's really good and smooth and wonderful. Why is the stuff on the side in English?
Because that's a cool thing to do.
Yes.
It's the hipster thing.
I am seeing incredible stuff coming out of these AI generators. Have you seen where they're like, show me this in the style of artist name?
Yeah.
And it is amazing what this stuff's coming up with, maybe better than the original artist. And so a lot of people looked at that and they were like, that's going to be a problem. We better try to get in front of that.
Stable Diffusion made copying artists and also generating porn harder, and users are mad because it's harder to get it to give you what you want.
It's easier to replace the talent of artistry. And we don't have Krista here to tell us about this. She's probably snottily screaming at the monitor right now.
If you work in an ad agency and you can just feed things into an AI, like how insane, like you're just installing this on everybody, but they probably have really crappy computers in the ad agency, so they're like trying to run Stable Diffusion on an iMac and it's just not working out for them.
Guys, in 45 minutes we'll have a couple of drafts for this image.
A couple of 200 by 300 pixel images. It's just like, good Lord. But I mean, how creatively bankrupt are you?
And well, look at the movie industry. And this is an Axios, sort of a roundup of all the new stuff that Google is bringing out in terms of AI. Some of it we've looked at previously.
Unleashing all the creativity, Google AI's breathtaking potential.
So,
wildfire tracking, flood forecasting, maternal health, ultrasound AI, preventing blindness, the 1,000 languages initiative to build a universal translator.
Yeah, we covered that one.
We are getting dangerously close to the behind ear offline universal translator.
And they talk about the new image stuff they got going on, the cooking. Remember the kitchen, the test kitchen stuff? They're definitely putting a lot of resources into AI, and they're making some pretty huge gains. I mean, the Stable Diffusion stuff, that kind of stuff is just astonishing. That's the kind of thing, imagine going back 10 years in the past and explaining that to yourself.
Yeah, or imagine, I really do think that we're like the AI stuff is going to completely transform the labor market here in America more than it will in China or India or anywhere else.
Within the creative.
Yeah. Within the next 5 years, maybe we're going to see some really crazy stuff.
That could be. Now you couple that with a depression.
Yeah.
That could be really nasty.
Yeah.
For the labor market.
Yeah, it's probably going to be very nasty for the labor market.
What if we were to throw self-driving trucks into that?
And all those people don't have a job anymore. Yeah, that's gonna and then food shortages, tofu dregs for food. Yeah.
Yikes. And maybe China's not manufacturing all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's not looking pretty.
Sure, it'll be fine. Well, Google is great at. Oh no, this is Meta, not Google. I'm sorry, but Google did it first. Google built the AI that beats everybody at games. But then you started talking about like more obscure games. Like, what about a game that really has a lot of interpersonal communication for humans? Can it trick other humans?
Meta researchers create an AI that masters diplomacy, tricking human players. Meta Cicero can negotiate and persuade humans with natural language, just like a human.
So this was a web version of this diplomacy game. And it's not like win-loss, but they pointed out how the Meta AI consistently scored higher than most humans ever could.
Do you think we'll see an Amazon AI shopping bot that consistently is able to talk you into buying the Amazon Basics version of something? And then when you get it in, it's like, oh, I've been tricked again. This is the worst version of this product.
Every time somebody's standing outside of a burning house, the firefighters are like, you trusted the robot, didn't you?
Did Amazon Basics talk you into that hoverboard? This is the fourth one this week.
But could it also be that, because remember when they did the StarCraft robot and the players immediately worked out a system to test it? And what if the diplomacy players are like, oh, that's the robot. Just do whatever it wants because we want to be on its team because that's the winning team.
Also with Go, remember that was the way to beat the Go AI was to just play Go the most insane way possible.
Maybe that's what you got to do. You got to do the first week of diplomacy, nuke everybody. But that's the AI won't know what to do about that. They won't retaliate. And what's the name of
Copilot?
Copilot, right? They're getting sued now because they are stealing code wholesale. That seems to be the only way to do that because doing it with actual AI, it's hard.
AI-assisted coding startup Kite has sunset after failing to take flight. I think they stretched a little hard for that headline.
The Kite was maybe a bit of an Icarus.
Yeah.
A little too close. They had a quote in here, and basically he was like, yeah, we failed.
Well, they tried to do it with, in a permissive way as far as licensing goes, whereas GitHub just used everything on GitHub regardless of the license. We failed to deliver our vision of AI-assisted programming because we were 10 plus years too early to market, and the tech is not ready yet, unless you just ignore the licensing, in which case it's actually very impressive. I've tried it.
But they've been around for much longer, so they've been failing for a while. Yeah. And he also pointed out that developers are not willing to pay for that service because it sucks.
Yeah, although it's only $100 a year through GitHub.
That's still too much.
Yeah.
To steal? And this, oh man, boy, did this make me happy.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of all of you. Let me just take a moment to say I'm so proud of all of you. Thank you for making this headline a reality.
Amazon Alexa is a quote-unquote colossal failure and is on pace to lose $10 billion this year. Layoffs reportedly hit the Alexa team hard as the company's biggest money loser.
I mean, if you have to start making cuts, which most people do in this environment, that little thing is going to be the first thing to go.
Yeah. It's not actually useful.
Now, do you recall when they decided to use a third-party company to figure out who we were in terms of identity?
And then the IRS was like, oh, that sounds good. We'll use that. And that seems responsible, like a responsible use of technology.
And remember when I was trying to get my background check?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, no, we don't do that stuff anymore. That's all the third party. Drive twice as far and go to their thing. And it's like, why are we doing this? This is going to end terribly. No, it'll be fine, they said.
ID.me lied about its facial recognition tech, Congress says. Dun, 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 dun. I'm pretty sure that we called this one, too.
So if you wanted unemployment, you had to go on, let the thing scan your face and everything. The average wait time, 4 to 9 hours.
And that scan of your face, there's about 50 different companies that have a copy of it, and they're going to have it forever.
And 6 of them are in Beijing.
Yeah.
And here's one this is a cost-saving measure that I think we must say no to. This just seems really obviously bad.
Aviation regulators push for more automation so flights can be run by a single pilot. Yeah, I've as someone who's experienced flying a lot the last month or so, it's a mess. It's a terrible mess. There must be a real pilot shortage because there's not a lot of direct flights. The layovers are really long. The airports are a nightmare, and I have no desire to travel via airplane.
Yeah. Seems like more and more people are having that same thought, which is hurting their bottom line. Their argument is that there's so much automation now that extra pilot is not needed. Because if your pilot were to have a stroke or something, the automation would probably take care of everything.
We're just going to land this one by remote wire. Okay. Sounds good.
Sounds bad. Sounds horrific. And here's a question about, like, they did this for arguably a good reason. These people would have been in trouble otherwise. But does it threaten the validity of these things? Like, obviously, somebody's going to just make up people out of nothing and use them. And then when they get called on it, they'll be like, oh, we can't tell you because that would put them at risk. I think that's a terrible thing. As bad as this is, the truth we have to be able to get to the truth.
BBC documentary used face-swapping AI to hide protesters' identities. Filmmakers used an AI to swap faces of anti-government protesters in Hong Kong for those of actors to protect the protesters' identities while maintaining their facial movements and emotional expressions. So it's like a scanner darkly.
Yeah, it's basically, it's deep fake, but instead of deep faking the famous actor onto the person, you're deep faking the person. Well, no, you're still doing the other way around.
Won't this make it a lot harder to separate propaganda from people that are really suffering?
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you put up a video and somebody was like, oh my God, Donald Trump beat me with a baseball bat and ruined my legs. And they're like, well, who was that person? We need to subpoena them. It's like, oh, I can't give you that.
Yeah.
We deep faked it just to protect them.
But on the other hand, what if you're in a state where you legit could disappear or your family could be threatened if you speak out to say, something is unreasonable? I worry about sometimes like just saying, it's like, hey, I would like a more reasonable solution for this that doesn't involve, political games on both sides trying to manipulate the situation to get more gains than just fixing the situation. And this is apparently a radical position.
Wouldn't blurring them or darkening them out and doing the deep voice, wouldn't that remind you more of that's the situation they're in rather than saying an attractive young actor instead of them?
No, I mean, not if they're going to get disappeared or have their family threatened or something.
But I mean, no, they would still have to sit down for it. So if we hid their identity through the old means, I think that this sort of papers over the horror.
What if you're, fast forward in America 10 more years where we've got the social credit system and social tracking and blah, blah, blah. And you speak up and you say, I think there's some corruption in the local government with this. And then the technology is used to just completely make your life untenably complicated.
I'd say we're already there.
Yeah. I think we're more there in New York than we are here, but yeah.
Personally, and I hate this, but I'm in a spot where I would not sit down for that interview. There is so much that I'm not willing to say right now or on the Twitch stream or whatever, or tweet or whatever. I'm solidly like, no, I'm not exposing myself to that danger because I know how real that danger is.
I just want to be reasonable, and that's a radical position.
You got to pick a side, and I'm not willing to.
Yeah.
This, I don't know. Do you think there's anything to this? Because I kind of don't. I think this is just a really fun story.
I think this is a fun story that doesn't have a lot of... there's not a lot to it.
But it is a lot of fun, and somebody is putting a lot of effort into perpetuating it, which I appreciate.
This article is titled A Journey Inside Our Unimaginable Future. It's not very good from a technical standpoint, but it is nice to get some insight into the mind of a normie as to how AI is going wrong, or not even how AI is going wrong. How would you describe this?
Well, if you need some reminders, this is Loeb.
We covered Loeb in the past.
We weren't sure if it was Loab or Loeb, but it is Loeb.
Loeb.
So someone created this image was an AI generated image from a text prompt. Then they took the negative, or what do they call that when they do the...
It's like not that.
Yeah.
The inverse.
The inverse of that image, and it comes out, and it's this horrible woman here. But then they were able to generate her over and over, and it's always horrific and always roughly the same woman.
If you've ever read, and it's the I have no mouth and I must scream, this is what I imagine that would come out of the AI if... I have no mouth and I must scream. Give me that in image form. It's like, there you go.
And then in this article, they did a GPT-3 as if they were going to talk to her, but like that has nothing to do with anything. That's just silly.
Yeah.
But it is cool that she keeps showing up. If that were some sort of like machine spirit that ultimately kills us all, I'd be okay with that. What a great way.
It sounds a little Warhammer.
What a great way for, the filter to come in is with Loeb.
I'm pretty sure that somebody is already working on the horror movie screenplay right now, and they will definitely be using imagery of Loeb.
Will somebody sue over Loeb?
I don't think you can because it's AI generated, so not copyrightable. At least in U.S. law.
What a crazy new world. All right, all we got left is nonsense.
Oh, Dr. Cuttress is here. Hello, how's it going? All right. Friggin' Ha says, Woot live. Thomas Brickett says, there should be a class action lawsuit against Microsoft for the extra cost to maintain Windows. Oh my gosh, tell me about it. Jake the Snake says, the best way to set up a cold crypto wallet, just a thumb drive that you keep safe so you won't forget the password.
More than one.
Yeah.
Make duplicates.
PH Gamer says, have you seen RoboCop with Samuel L. Jackson? I did not know that there was a Samuel L. Jackson remake.
Was he RoboCop?
No, I think it was just with him in there.
Oh, okay.
Sarif78, thank you. Vinny2142, thank you. Always good to catch the Level 1 show live. I hope you all been doing well. Not too bad. PH Gamer says, I've used Alexa. All I do is just ask it what time it is without getting up, or to see the camera in the front. It couldn't intelligently look up answers to questions I wanted. So it sounds like he stopped asking Alexa. That makes sense. Jonathan Briggs says, level 1 minus engagement time. I missed the last stream. Well, welcome. Welcome for engagement. Should be good.
Ready for nonsense?
Yeah.
No sort. Just going in straight. No sort nonsense. First, we have an impressive scientific advancement. But why? We should not be doing this. If there's one thing that we do not need right now, it's more babies.
Parents welcome twins from embryos frozen for 30 years. This was this a world record on frozen embryos? It was a really long time.
It's the longest ones ever, I think. Also, they look kind of old and wrinkled, don't they? Wouldn't that be hilarious if they just came out old?
I don't think it works like that. Real world Benjamin Button? No, I don't. So far, they seem healthy, but time will tell.
If those are going to be some old parents,
yeah,
that ain't right. Don't do that to your kids. And I didn't know this was coming. Did you?
Nope.
But this sort of follows the trend of like the Rings of Power, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to spend just ridiculous sums of money on this, and you're going to give it to us, and you're going to hope that it does well.
Avatar, The Way of the Water, needs $2 billion to break even. So tell me that we have runaway inflation without telling me that we have runaway inflation. It's like, oh my gosh, $2 billion. That means it needs to be one of the top 10 most grossing films of all time in order to break even. But also, money isn't worth as much anymore. So
it would need to be... do they adjust for inflation when they measure that? They do, don't they? I think they do. But it would need to be right above or below the previous Avatar in order to make its money back. I don't think that's crazy. You should not do that. Maybe that's good for PR. Maybe that like rejuvenates people's love of movies. But I've still never seen Avatar.
I really would like to see a trend in Hollywood where the directors get proportionally more praise with a smaller budget. Like imagine a Steven. I mean, look at Steven Spielberg and what he was able to do with Jaws with like $5. That worked out really well.
But during Jaws, you still needed a full editing team. You needed film. You needed all those cameras. Now those cameras, they're handheld.
An iPhone could do a better job than. Yeah.
So you would think the cost would just keep going down.
Do you think we could get a cinematic masterpiece on the level of Jaws with, shot with iPhones?
No. I think Jaws was an accident. That was the failure made the film. Like the robot being bad made him make an amazing film that he would not have otherwise. Because Jaws, I think the story is he didn't want to make it, but they were like, you have to make this, so we let you make the other one.
Yeah.
Great stories.
Well,
happy accidents.
You can really feel the director's suffering in that video or that movie, and it comes through. It's good.
Just like what's the Shining?
Yeah. You can really, like, all the best software, you can really feel the suffering of the developers in it.
Oh, the Microsoft Teams gang, they must be the happiest people on earth. And if you want to sell your Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton, don't try to fake it.
Christie's cancels a T-Rex skeleton auction after doubts have been raised about its authenticity or completeness. There was a paleontologist that said, hey, some of these bones look like they're really similar to or exactly the same as other bones from another different T-Rex skeleton. So this may have been an incomplete skeleton that had some of its missing bones filled in with casts, and that hasn't been disclosed.
That would suck to find out later. If I was whatever billionaire was going to buy that, I would slip that paleontologist a couple $100. Like, thanks for watching out for me, bro. Got any leads on some new T-Rexes? I'm in the market.
I mean, I think if you were in the market for a T-Rex and some of the bones are casts, like, do you even care? Just tell people that.
Did all of you people out there in the audience, did you know that heroin is fairly easy to grow?
I do now.
They don't want you to know.
Tasmanian flower farmer has been quote-unquote shocked to learn she planted opium poppies by mistake. This article is completely devoid of any negative consequences for the lady other than she's like, oops, my bad.
But that, I mean, you would think those seeds would be a little more controlled, right?
Apparently not. She said that you could pick them up easily.
I think there is some crazy rule about how seeds are not illegal because they could just be seeds. Maybe you're just a seed collector. It doesn't become illegal until you try to turn them into a plant.
Is that like when they did the Mythbusters episode where you eat an everything bagel and you do get a positive drug test?
I think you have to eat a lot of them, don't you?
I think they had, I don't know, somebody in chat will remember, but it was more than one, but it was not a shockingly high number. It was like, oh, I had 20 everything bagels. No, it was like 2 or 3 in a week or something. I don't know.
Maybe they could just let us do what we want with plants and not have these silly rules. But that would be chaos. You know what else is chaos? Food packaging claims. They make all these insane claims like light, L-I-T-E. Guess what? Doesn't mean anything. That's a word that does not have a meaning. They can just slap that on whatever they want. They can also give you a big runaround about preparation time.
Woman says suing Kraft Heinz for $5 million, saying that mac and cheese preparation isn't as advertised. The box says ready in 3.5 minutes. It's microwaves for 3.5 minutes, but it takes a lot more time than that to actually prepare it. Or it doesn't actually say. The lawsuit doesn't specify how long it takes.
I would say it would take another minute at least,
maybe
right?
2.
Also, she said when you stir it, you have to wait for your desired consistency while stirring. That could be 2-3 minutes. Could double the time. You like thick cheese? Probably never get thick cheese from that, right?
Is it even real cheese?
There's maybe some cheese in there. And in Indian police stations, they have a bit of a plague with evidence going missing. But they've got a great excuse for it. Yeah, it's definitely the rats.
Rats blamed for eating 500 kilos of cannabis stored by Indian police? This is on CNN.com. There is some video evidence of this, but
So obviously, if you're, I don't know how it is in India. I assume it's the same as here. If you seize these things from me and then it goes to court, I'm like, well, you have to prove that you have it. And they're like, well, we can't because the rats. Definitely not the Indian police sampling, possibly selling.
Rats.
They should just turn it into an NFT and destroy it, right? Bring the NFT to court. The world of like the misery. I bought a laptop for my dad and I got fraud checked on that. And I had to actually talk to the call center person. Oh my God, what a misery. And you think like as bad as that process is, at least you can still talk to a human being, even though they're on another continent. But that is going away.
Frontier Airlines gets rid of telephone customer service. Because of course they do. Because airline travel these days is a horrible, horrible suffering, misery inflicted upon everyone.
And when they lose your luggage, what you want to do is download WhatsApp so that you can communicate with them. That's a good idea. That's just horrific.
Don't we have problems with that on YouTube in the comments? It's like, oh, you want a prize. Contact me on WhatsApp. That's fraud. That's always fraud. And here we have an airline that's like,
exactly.
Oh, yeah, contact me on WhatsApp.
Get your luggage back today. Now, we talked about a story similar to this where they pointed out that there are just so many little crews running around doing this thing sort of outside the realms of law enforcement. These are vigilante Chris Hansons, and there's thousands of them. Is it legal? Is it not legal? Well, the Supreme Court in Canada, not America, has weighed in.
Luring pedophiles through online ads is not entrapment, the Supreme Court says on the CBC website. Yeah, as Ryan said, this is Canada. Keep in mind, it's a 9-0 ruling, though. There were no dissenters.
I hate to help these people because, they're not the kind of people we want in our society. But if let's say you're past the age of 27, I'm going to put the cutoff there. And there's a 14-year-old girl online who's looking to meet up with you for sex. She's not real. That's never going to be real.
I really, the Supreme Court in Canada, their reasoning for this was that, was your take on it that citizens, I don't want to say practicing law enforcement, that's too strong, because they were very keen to say citizens can't enforce the law, but citizens can investigate a crime, I guess, or possible crime.
Well, we're supposed to have like the citizen. Well, this is Canada again.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Like here, we're supposed to have the citizen's arrest, right?
Well, but here everything's just sort of been tamped down to the point that I was kind of surprised that they would be that free in Canada that their Supreme Court would say, no, as a citizen, you have the right to investigate wrongdoing, in your community. And I was like, if you feel you can make your community better by digging into things a little bit, then have at it. And I was like, wow, that's we don't even have that in America.
You know what else is crazy is how often these little vigilante groups catch cops.
Yeah.
Turns out the cops, maybe statistically, somewhat fond of the young ladies and or boys. Now, the phrase 15 minutes of fame, it's 15 minutes for a reason. It's not. How many years has it been? Year and a half, 2?
Yeah.
Your small fame will never survive that long. You have to strike while the iron is hot. It's very cold now, Mr. Rittenhouse.
The Shack News website reports Kyle Rittenhouse's turkey shoot video is a video game that targets fake news media. It's not out yet, but he's releasing it to raise money for lawsuits against fake news media.
You shoot fake news turkeys, which I guess is the Thanksgiving tie-in. But, yeah, that's silly. That's silly. Very silly. Don't download that. Whether you agree with it or not.
But it's on Steam. No, it's...
Looks like a mobile game, I guess. And here's just a fun way to start your life. You think this sets you up for success? They weren't dining there. They stopped to make an emergency bathroom trip.
A woman gives birth at McDonald's, and her baby girl is fittingly nicknamed Nugget.
Lil Nugget. I think I accidentally had that on the screen the entire time, didn't I?
It's fine. Because Nugget, I mean, who could be mad about Nugget?
Be a good pet name.
Yeah.
If she becomes a vegetarian later in life, that will maybe haunt her.
You can have Beyond Meat nuggets. They're not very good.
Can you imagine how many poofas are in those?
It's really, really, really processed. I had some tofurkey. It was the least offensive meat substitute that I've had.
Wait, how does that come in just like a block or?
It came sliced, just like real turkey.
Okay.
It was a little
disappointing.
No, it was fibrous, I guess is probably the right word. It's like when you rip it.
Yeah, the protein is not the same.
There's a bit of a fiber to it when you
I've had the vegan bacon, which is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have this sort of trend in America of taking it easy on criminals. Don't prosecute the crimes because it's, the whole equity thing. What does that lead to? Well, in a lot of places, they would hire former criminals to try and coach the current criminals into nonviolence. Does it work?
Man who helped pass the D.C. criminal code overhaul has been shot and killed in southeastern Washington, D.C. This is over a traffic incident too, so they didn't call it road rage, but there was some kind of a fender bender, and he got out of the car, and the other person just shot him.
Or he was still involved in the drug game, still a criminal, taking the subsidy payment that they give for, like, used to be a criminal but not anymore, and this was a criminally related slaying.
I definitely didn't get that takeaway from the article.
I don't know that to be the case, but
that's weird.
Seems possible. And here we have a story about the most docile cat in the world. My cats, you would have known long before. Long before.
Live cat found inside a checked bag at JFK Airport. So they tracked down the owner. It wasn't the bag. The bag did not belong to the cat's owner, but the cat's owner was like, "Oh yeah, he does that sometimes. That's him. That's him being him."
Cats do love to get down into stuff like suitcases and what have you. So
the TSA agent was surprised.
There he is. Still laying down. He's just like, "Hey, bro, what's going on?"
This is good. It's good that the TSA caught him because the trunk compartment of an airplane doesn't have oxygen. That would have been a problem for the cat.
It gets really cold, too,
yeah,
at those elevations. That would have been a dead kitty. Too bad. Well, I mean, actually good, because cat's fine. He's back at home. They'll probably check their suitcases a little more closely. How do you not... Like, that's 10 to 15 pounds of extra weight.
Yeah.
Seems like you'd know. And, like, it had to be unwieldy when it was swinging around.
I can't think of a luggage that would be so nice you wouldn't hear a cat yelping either.
I'm saying that cat must be really docile. Like just a chill cat. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to roll with it. So far, they've never tried to kill me. Meanwhile, my cats, still, when I sneeze, they just assume I'm trying to kill them. This definitely the biggest goldfish I've ever seen. I don't know if this is a record, but it looks fake, right? Like, doesn't look like a real fish.
Surely to goodness, this is from the local Chinese place that shut down. Fisherman catches 67-pound goldfish. That is an unbelievably huge goldfish. It's the second largest ever on record, according to CNN Travel.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about the place that had the little pond out front?
Yeah.
That's Japanese, right? Not Chinese?
No, well, our Chinese place has the koi pond.
Oh, you're thinking of... Okay, so they shut down?
No. I was saying one there shut down, and then they have released the goldfish into the...
Yeah. They do have those... the one here that's a vending machine, so you can feed the fish, and that's probably not good for the fish. They're probably overfed.
They are very large.
Yeah. That's wild, though. What do goldfish eat in the wild? Other fish?
I think like just the dregs and
that guy had to do a lot of dreg eating all day, right? Well, social media trends are insane, as we saw with all the various challenges and so forth. But in China, apparently here in rural America, we're what's cool.
Posing like American farmers is the latest trend among Chinese influencers. That someone should send them a memo. That is, it's not amazing. It's actually a little terrifying. If you just joined us, we're on the nonsense section because obviously this is.
All these attractive young people pretending to be farmers. How long do you think it takes to set up that shoot right there? It's more than 6 hours, right?
This has got to be like at a studio or something, right?
They got the pizza. It's all these American stereotypes. It's so great.
Surely to goodness.
I don't see how this is farming. Do you? That's just schoolgirl stuff. That's never gone out of style.
What's going on there? Oh, sorry. What? Oh, that's his hat.
Yeah,
he's gonna have a nasty sunburn if he takes a nap there.
He's gonna walk away from that and never think about hay again in his life.
Right. Although, if he gets a tick bite,
that would be justice, right? You could be a supervillain who goes around and throws ticks at influencers to try and show them what the real world is like. This one actually didn't have a lot of details.
No.
Just apparently some dairy cows got out and nobody cared for a really long time.
Fugitive cows in Quebec escape capture again and again. So they had to get some special cowboys to come in and round them up because they capture them, but they come back and then they escape again. The cows have a taste of freedom. What was the song "Cows with Guns"?
I don't know that one.
That one, it was like, I think it was a parody song. Cows with guns, mouse say tongue.
What would you say is the cost for a special cowboy per hour?
Less than you would get selling that cow for meat. Probably about 10 grand a head.
And here's a wild story. It took me a while to figure out what was going on here, but I do think Mr. Jackson has a pretty good case here because they did try to use his name and slander it to get social media attention.
The headline for this is trial over 50 cents penis set for July 2023. And this is because it was posted on the internet, the enhancement surgery?
No, the penis was not. What happened is he went to a clinic that does plastic surgery type stuff, and he probably got something done, but it wasn't penis related, according to him. They tweeted, and he took a picture with the owner because it's like, oh my God, 50 Cent, can I get a picture? So then that picture got reported by an online magazine that it was penis related, and then she responded to their tweet for their article with eggplant emoji, which in his mind
is confirmation.
Right. And he is saying that hurts my image. I have a big, beautiful natural penis, and my fans need to trust that.
It's amazing that Twitter is at the center of this story.
Yeah, well, Twitter's at the center of everything, isn't it? Until they manage to destroy it, because now they don't like it anymore. And finally, this is what do you have strong feelings about bathroom stuff.
I don't think this is a crime against humanity.
What is it about? Well, let's look at it first.
South Korean professor invents a toilet that turns human poops into power and pays out in Google crypto token. Yeah, this is a gimmick. This is nothing more than headlines.
The crypto stuff, admittedly, but what about? So he's got this system that works basically like the cattle farms do.
Yeah,
it bleeds methane.
Yeah.
So you think that's bad?
I don't think that you can really get a meaningful amount of stuff. So
he says we will need overwhelming infrastructure changes in order to make this happen. But he says it's worth it because free energy.
Well, I mean, your local sewage treatment plant has a leach pit and some other stuff. And so, like, they could maybe do something with this, but they didn't need him to do anything with that.
But at scale, I don't think the gas bleeders work. Yeah. It's got to be like per building has to run their own.
Now, I've had a couple people out that have farms out in like Nebraska that they tell me that they actually do collect the cow poop and
pigs
and just their animal poop. And they actually will produce some kind of diesel or something like that.
It's methane.
Yeah, something that runs off of, that'll help them run their equipment.
Usually what they'll do is they'll heat the barn with whatever's coming off of that.
Yeah.
And once you run it through this cycle, what's left is now manure and safe for the crops.
Yeah, that seemed like that was part of it. And also, but the headache of doing that was not that they were saving money, but that they had so much of it that it cost less than disposing of it any other way. And they got a little tiny benefit in terms of fuel and a little tiny benefit in terms of fertilization. So it was a headache, but
it's something we're never going to run out of.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. But pooping without water, like how does that not become horrific? Like let's say that you have this in a company bathroom, in a public restroom in the lobby, and you open at 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., I don't want to use that toilet.
Yeah, no. Well, so like, working on the toilet systems here, the plumbing was designed for toilets that had about a 5-gallon per flush. And now a modern toilet is like a gallon per flush or less. And like the diameter of the pipes isn't right, and the water flow thing isn't right. And it's a challenge to get those low flow toilets to be compatible with the old 4-inch cast iron plumbing and still work correctly and carry the waste away. So I can't imagine this.
But imagine if you had this, let's say like at a concert venue, a stadium. How much could you generate?
I think that it seems like it would just end in a horrible catastrophe before you ever got any energy flow positivity, unless you used a crap load of water.
Taylor Swift comes to town and it overloads because there's too many people. It's got like 20,000 tampons in it the next day.
You could probably do some sort of study on society with like how sick were they and
what drugs are they on?
Yeah, what drugs, what diseases. I mean, that might be an anthropology project more than energy generation.
We've generated so many kilowatts of energy, and we've measured that 34% of the audience is on Adderall.
Yeah, Chad is almost universally like, please stop talking about this. Okay.
All right. We'll stop altogether.
That's it for us. We've got a few super chats to wind us down. Let's see, Mark Rose. Why do CPU reviews rarely benchmark turn times in strategy games? I hope someone does this with the next Zen 3D chip. I usually try to do. I've done Stellaris, like running Stellaris on full speed, and I've also done Civ. Civ's usually a good benchmark for that.
Dwarf Fortress is the ultimate benchmark.
Dominic Sarasano, I think is how. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Why do I look smaller? It's because I'm sitting where Krista is. Krista's side of the table naturally makes me look smaller.
Well, it's also because you're on the. He's forced vegetarian now. He can't eat anything. He's
this delicious water.
Nothing. He went from how many like orange sodas a day?
No, maybe like one, and they were diet.
Lots of sugary treats.
Yeah,
you were a big snacker, and like you've gone like just hardcore vegan, unintentional vegan, low sugar, nothing but water.
I have almost no processed sugar these days.
That's dramatic.
Yeah.
If anybody in the audience does that, I guarantee you'll have similar effects. I don't have the willpower.
It's fun. Yeah. Well, I want to survive. So
yeah, I mean, violently ill is a great motivator.
Yeah. Yeah. Tech Kev says, have you not seen Avatar? It's I want to go stream it now, or maybe keep this stream running and then stream that one. Avatar was a good movie. Mm-hmm. It was visually impressive.
But can that lightning strike twice?
I don't know.
Wasn't it revolutionary?
Yeah. James Cameron certainly thinks it can strike twice. J.W. Dickinson says, attention to banana. You may now carry on. Nick War says, sounds like hunting's been legitimized. I'm off to go get me some scalps. I don't know
for the pedophiles.
Oh, yeah.
You're not allowed to kill them, by the way.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do anything illegal, but you can gather evidence.
You can't even arrest them. You can confront them and put that on YouTube and make quite a bit of money.
Do I use a travel clean laptop? Kinda, but not really. If I travel internationally, yes, but not domestically. All right. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out. Be sure to share and ask questions and retweet. And thank you everybody that supported this. I'm going to click the add button now, so I'd appreciate it if you watched an ad and hung out for a little bit for that. But we will see you with the news next week on our regular schedule again.
Hopefully.